Hello everyone, welcome to this PnP Webcast. Our topic of today is the SharePoint Modern User Interface Experience Scanner. My name is Bert Jansen, I'm a service engineer inside Microsoft, and my co-presenter today is Vesa Juvonen.
Yes, my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a senior program manager from the OneDrive SharePoint Engineering. And like Bert mentioned, Bert will be leading the presentation. I'll jump in and ask random questions as we move along.
So, and the first question that pops up is like, why did you guys build this tool? Right, that's a fair question to ask. And the reason why we built this tool is to answer the question on screen. It's like, is your tenant ready for the modern experience? Now, modern experience, it encompasses multiple things. It is the modern site pages, which you get with a modern group site. It is the modern list and library experience. So all the shiny new user interface experiences we've been rolling out over the last period, we kind of group them in modern. So if you hear modern, that's what we talk about. Now, how do you know whether your tenant is ready or not? So we have several customers that have modern turned off. Most of them have turned it on by default. So meaning when we ship those modern experiences, so the new list and library experience, modern pages, we turn them on by default for you because we think it's the best for you as a user, as a customer. But you customers, like you could have turned it off as well. Now, customers which
and maybe Bert, sorry for jumping on that one, just to clarify, why would actually certain tenant administrator turn it off? And that really comes down on change management. And this is no doubt this is a bigger challenge for a mid-size and a larger customers and enterprises rather than smaller ones, because if you're a smaller company, you will probably adapt to new capabilities and new UIs relatively fast. But then if you have 120,000 employees, or let's say 30,000 employees, you might have training material, you might have a lot of things which rely on the end users to understand how to create pages and all of that. And typically those are the customers who are looking into disabling the modern experiences by default, and then gradually enabling that whenever the audience is ready for it.
Yes, so indeed it's just mainly larger customers that turn it off because they wanted to be better prepared, essentially. And part of being better prepared is understanding, like, okay, if I turn it on, will it work everywhere? If not, where are the places where modern will not work and why? And this tool is the answer to those questions. It will tell you, like, okay, when you start using modern, or if you're using modern already today, here are the sites which, for example, do not have a modern page experience. Here are the list and libraries which are not showing up in modern. Here are customizations that you created that are not respected in the modern experience. And that's important input for you to decide on, okay, I turn modern completely on, or I turn it on and I take a few sites based on the data I get from the tool. I can say, like, okay, these 10% of sites, for now I'll put them in classic mode because I still need some time to rework my customizations, for example. But the presentation will give you a bit more detail on how to get to that actual data. So let's get started. Getting started is fairly simple. You go over to our PnP site on GitHub, ak.ms/svpnp-modern UI scanner is shorthand, but essentially is in the PnP tools repository, and you grab the scanner. The scanner is a zip file which you download. You get a one exe that you can execute. So it's one file that you need to run the tool. The tool can run in two modes, essentially, when it comes to authenticating to your tenant, because it needs to scan all the sites, all the webs in the sites, all the libraries. So it needs to have access to your data. The easiest way is using an app-only principle with tenant-level permissions, and that's what's documented in our guidance as well. So how you do that is using app-rec-new to create a principle and app-inf to give it the proper permissions. In the demo coming up, we'll show you how to do that in a bit more of detail. But it's fairly lightweight, simple process. Once you've done the preparation, running the tool is calling our exe, like UI experience scanner. Give it your tenant name. For For example, if your tenant is called contoso.sharepoint.com, you just specify contoso, like you see at the bottom here, and you specify the client ID and client secret that you created in the previous step, and off you go. Depending on
maybe one note. Yeah, sorry, one note to mention on this one. So obviously you can download the zip file, but the source code is also in the
absolutely,
GitHub.
Absolutely.
So you can absolutely have a look on the code and then compile, rather than if you're concerned about, let's say, downloading a random .exe file for your machine.
Absolutely, yeah. Everything is open source. All the code is available. You can have a look inside what it's doing. So if you go to the URL I mentioned, you come into the PnP Tools repository. And in the releases folder, you find the latest version. This zip contains the .exe, but as I mentioned, the complete source code is available here as well for you to have a look at and play with it. Documentation contains a quick start guide explaining you the download, how to create the app principal. So with app new step, then granting permissions with app.inf. So all of these steps are really detailed, described with all the data you need to make it happen, essentially. One thing I want to highlight, though, is that when you create this app principal with tenant level permissions, please safeguard that client ID and client secret, because that combination actually allows you to read and write all data in your tenant, in your SharePoint tenant. So you should treat it as like your administrator password, essentially.
Yes, and to be able to create that, you also need to be a tenant administrator as well, which is a good point to mention. But people don't necessarily always think about, hey, I have this client ID and a secret, I'll just put it in here so that everybody can use it. Well, you probably should be more careful around that one.
Okay, so then when you run the tool, we already showed this in the previous slide, you give it your tenant name, client ID, and secret, and it starts running. Now in the demo, we're not going to kick off the tool because it's not fun watching a console application dumping out text to a console window. There's one thing I want to quickly show there, however, is like this one. It will give regular updates on, okay, I processed X site collections of the Y. So 8 of 195 here. That gives you an indication of how long the tool will run. So if you're a really large company, like having 10,000 or more of site collections, keep in mind that the tool can run for a couple of days maybe, which is normal. We've had huge customers running it for days and days. At the very end, it dumps all the data, so it keeps running stable. Just don't worry, let it run until the very end.
Yeah, and we've been testing that in the MSIT as well, so in the Microsoft tenants. And like Bert mentioned, there's large customers who've been using this already. So even though you would be having 50,000 site collections, you can, or 500,000 site collections, you can actually do this. And it's using multi-threading as well, so it is optimized for larger executions as well.
Yeah. So if you click on if you run the tool without any command line, you get all the details on how to run it and all the command line arguments, which are also described in the help text, so I'm not going to go into depth on these ones. After the tool has been running, you get a folder. So each tool execution creates a new folder, which is a timestamp essentially, and in there all the CSV files are dropped. These CSV files are the individual reports, and they're also described in the README MD file on GitHub. So you get a detailed description of each report, what it means. And for the demo, later on, we'll have a look at the data and kind of teach you or tell you how to take conclusions out of the data that the tool generated for you. So okay, we did this getting started. I actually already did the demo around getting started.
Yes, we did. You are too fast.
Too fast, yeah, faster than my shadow. Yeah. Okay, so remember we said the tool has 3 sections: modern pages, modern list and libraries, and ignored customizations. Let's talk about modern pages. By default, when you run the scanner, like I showed previously, it will scan for all 3 elements. So pages, list and libraries, and customizations. You can, however, also do like a targeted scan. So you could say like, okay, I only want modern pages, then you provide the -m blocked pages. This scan outputs this file, modern pages blocked. And the reason, the scope of the scan is essentially giving you a list of sites. So this is also subwebs, so any site where the modern page feature is not enabled. That's what you get from this tool. Some things to understand here is that when we rolled out this modern pages feature, we only kind of activated it for all the group #0 sites. So these are the modern team sites. And for most of the classic team sites, so the STS #0 sites. If a classic team site did have publishing enabled, at that point we didn't enable modern pages. If the classic team site did have like a lot of wiki pages or a lot of web art pages, we also didn't enable the modern pages feature. So you might see some team sites having it and some team sites not having it, which is something you might want to fix, because you might want to have, as a customer, a uniform experience. So based on this data, you can go to the team sites not having modern pages enabled and turn it on, which is one of the key takeaways essentially. So you have a list of sites not having it, where you can turn it on. And the report will also tell you like, okay, it will indicate like modern pages was turned on this site at a certain point in time, but someone did disable it afterwards. And these are the interesting ones, because you want to understand in your company, like, okay, why are people turning it off? And should I turn it back on again? Now, what does it mean if we look at the actual data? So I'm going to go to the Excel file. So I actually already prepared this Excel file. So I added all the CSV files into one Excel file to make it easier to do the demo. Before we go to pages, let's do a quick intro on the summary tab. So the summary CSV file, it just gives you how many site collections, webs, and lists were scanned, and the duration and scanner version. Might be handy if you want to report an issue or report feedback around the tool. Okay, going to pages. All the reports give you a site URL, site collection URL. So you can always kind of go and target and know which site or web or list we're talking about. Then here, the interesting filter is this one. Okay, modern page feature was enabled. You have some false and some true. Essentially, what I'm interested in is understanding, like, okay, give me the sites where the modern feature was enabled by SharePoint when we rolled out the feature, or if you provision a new site today, modern pages is enabled as well. Okay, give me those sites, but then tell me, like, okay, which sites it is now not enabled anymore. So this filter tells you, like, okay, it used to be enabled on this particular site collection, so which is called modern, but now it's not anymore. So someone did disable it on purpose, and this is like a set of sites you might want to kind of go back and enable it again.
Just out of curiosity, Bert, because that's an interesting functionality, and the tooling is working using the REST API and CSOM. How do you detect that the modern web page feature was enabled, but then it has been disabled after that?
Yeah, it is because we have the modern page content type linked to the site pages library, which stays after we disable it. Yeah, it's a way to detect it. Yeah. So that should be fairly bulletproof.
Absolutely, makes sense.
Just taking the complete list again. So notice here that if you I have several blog sites. Like a blog site doesn't have it by default. We never turned on modern pages for a blog site, so don't be worried if you don't see modern pages everywhere. We only turn it on for team sites and modern team sites. So classic and modern team sites did get it. All the other site types didn't get it by default. Okay, moving on. Next big topic, and actually the biggest topic in the scanner, and also the most complex from a scanning logic perspective, because it has to do way more than the actual list scan, than the actual modern page scan, is scanning lists and libraries. Again, you can focus your scan by providing a command line. Output is the modern list blocked CSV file. And the scope of the scan is understanding like, okay, give me all the lists and libraries which are not showing up using a modern UI, essentially, which keep on showing themselves using the classic SharePoint user interface. This scan also works when you have turned off modern at the tenant level. So suppose you are one of those big enterprise customers which has turned it off for now. The scan will still give you like, okay, once you turn it on, these are all the list and libraries that will not work, and these are the ones that are the ones which will work will not be listed, but it will tell you like which of the libraries will not work when you turn it on.
Or where the library and list experience is currently classic, and the reasoning behind it, right?
Correct. That's one of the reasons why it would be in classic. Yeah. Now, when you look at the report, you will see like a lot of columns of data. So, and you might be a bit overwhelmed, but there is good reason to have the data in there, and there is a clear. If you go to the README MD file, you will see that there's clear filters which we prescribe. So we tell you like if you use this filter, you can get this key takeaway from that report. So don't worry too much about the number of columns. The site, the README MD, contains information for you to help understand what's in there. Now, what are key takeaways that I want to tell you about in this session? First of all, the report will tell you like, okay, there are a number of lists and libraries which showed in classic, but actually you as an end user, you as a developer, you as a tenant administrator, you can't fix that simply because Microsoft did not yet build that particular functionality to have that list or library show up in a modern UI. Let's take an example like a task list or an announcement list. Those guys are showing up classic by design because it wasn't simply built to show up in modern. They show up in the report, and I will tell you how to filter them out. Now, there's also a category of lists where you essentially can make them compatible because they are, for example, not rendering modern because let's say there is some JS link. Okay, you could work on that and potentially remove JS link and make that list compatible again with modern. So you get the data as well. And a third key takeaway from this scanner is like, okay, so the thing that Vesta mentioned before was like, it would be interesting to know like which lists and libraries got modern turned off by the user, either the site administrator because he activated the blocking, the site collection or web scope, the modern block feature, or the user because they turned it off at the list level. So the report will tell you that as well. All right, so let's have a look at the report. So I'm going back to my Excel file this time and take the list data. Again, we have all the URLs talking about the actual site, site collection, and the list. And then there's a whole series of columns. Now, for me, the most important column to start with is only blocked by out-of-the-box reasons. Because this column, if you take the ones with false here, we actually are excluding all the lists and libraries which are blocked because there is no out-of-the-box feature to enable it. I talked about the task list, so there are certain list types which are not rendering modern. If your site has managed metadata navigation activated, then that list managed metadata navigation feature essentially blocks modern for that particular site. You can't really fix that unless you have to turn off the managed metadata navigation feature. So I tried to group a number of these categories under the only blocked by out-of-the-box reasons. And if you filter that one, you will get a smaller list, because actually you end up with a list where you can kind of start changing things. So that's one filter. Another filter which is interesting to know is the blocked. So you see those three columns: blocked at site level, blocked at web level, blocked at list level. So essentially, this will show you, like, those two columns F and G is okay. Where did a site administrator enable the blocking feature at the site or web level? Because they might have done this because they were not ready for modern, but now that the modern also evolved, so we get more and more features inside the modern UI, and you might want to kind of revert that action. And this report will tell you, like, okay, these are the sites where you can then have to disable the blocking feature again. And column H is showing the blocking at list level. So if an end user, let's take this one on through. So if an end user went to the list settings and said, I want to run this one in Classic, okay, they could, and they did, then you get these lists showing up in the report by filtering on blocked at list level through. And then you see also column J is the actual setting that was applied. Okay, I'm gonna clear these filters. This one.
That's a great insights on across the tenant around how the site collection administrators and site administrators have set up their list rendering. So, and that would give an indication, for example, if we need to do some level of a training for the end users, if they prefer to use the Classic, and so on. So,
yeah, good point. Scrolling through the columns, you see that we have like blocked by list base template. So remember, task library is not showing up, so it will show you the base template being used. If your page showing the list has multiple web paths on it, we're not rendering it. Not so common, but then there's a category blocked by JS link, blocked by XSL link, or blocked by XSL. So these typically are used to kind of control how the list is rendering. So actually these are customizations that manipulate the list rendering. And of course, that doesn't really work in a modern UI by default. So you can filter out those guys by filtering on the blocked column, and then you also see, like, essentially, like if I take blocked by JS link through, I have a number of lists where there's some JS link in there. And these ones, due to JS link, will fall back to Classic. If you want to fix those, you today can remove the JS link. Depending on your needs, it might not be relevant anymore, so you can drop the customization. Or you have to wait until there is something more from our side that can do something similar.
Which is in the roadmap. When we are recording this video, and it might be live already when you're watching a video. So.
Yep, and the same applies to XSL link or JS link at fields. So
yes,
these type of customizations are kind of considered similar type of customizations. Then there is a number of field types where Microsoft did not enable them to render in modern today, which is business data field, task outcome field, publishing fields, geolocation fields. So if you have those fields in your list, then again you can't really fix it unless you remove the field from the view. So this is not about removing the field from the actual list, but you could drop the field from the view. If it wasn't really mandatory to show it in the view, at that point it could unblock you, but if not, you have to wait until we have proper support for this. And final, list custom action. So if a list has a list custom action which embeds JavaScript, then again that one is a blocker for the list. So your only option for you now is remove it or wait for something more, some alternative option from Microsoft. But again, it contains a lot of columns, but please check the site. Let me go over here, if you go to the site and scroll down, you go to the modern list blocked documentation, you see all the columns with their explanation. But more interesting, you see the key takeaways. You see like, okay, if I apply this filter, I get this key takeaway. So I try to list down like ways how to filter, manipulate, and play with the data to get some conclusions from the data. Good. The last section is around which customizations are, and I call that ignored. Maybe that's, well, I choose ignored because essentially that's what happens. But like they are there, they are not removed, they are there, they are active, but we just ignore, we kind of say like, we don't see you, customization, we don't see you, we just run. So there are a number of customizations that you have been doing as a customer when you developed for SharePoint, and while on modern, they don't work, essentially. And this scan will kind of give you a good inventory of those customizations. This time we output multiple files. There's one kind of ignored customization CSV file grouping everything, and then it's individual files, so master pages, alternate CSS, and custom actions. So the scan, oh, I see I didn't complete the slide here, sorry. The scan is for kind of understanding which customizations, which master pages, alternate CSS, and user custom actions are being ignored, essentially. Key takeaways.
And let's be super clear on this one. You mentioned that one already, but what it means is that if you have sites which have a custom master page or alternate CSS or user custom action, and you would flip that to be modern experience, that means that master pages, alternate CSS, and user custom action will be gone from an end user perspective if you're using the modern experience.
On the modern pages.
Yes, on the modern pages, like the site contents page, if you're using the modern experience within the site. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and at that point you can ask yourself like, okay, like if I have a master page, alternate CSS, or user custom action, do I need them? Are they critical? Do they apply to the modern page or not? So custom master pages or alternate CSS on team sites, it might be that you try to do some, let's say, some responsive design. At that point you might be good because okay, the modern pages are responsive by default. You don't have to try to do something on your own. So you might not need a custom master page anymore, or alternate CSS. Around user custom actions, when working with beta testers, what we've noticed is that, for example, we have customers having like one user custom action on all their site collections because it is embedding like a company-wide banner solution. Okay, if that's the case, and you need a banner solution, then it is this user custom action is really critical for you, and you need, you probably cannot go to modern at this point unless you have an alternative solution for that. On the other end, I also saw companies having again user custom action on all the site collections, but this time it was some JavaScript there to override the create subsite link, to create site link. And for that, there's an alternative solution. I'm not going to dive into details of that one here, but so you have to really look at what, if you see like something being broadly used across all your sites, really have a look at the JavaScript, what's being embedded via the custom action, and try to understand what it's doing, do I need it, and can I have an alternative option to do the same thing. So that shouldn't be a blocker in all cases. You really have to investigate.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back to the report. Customizations, so as there's that one grouping report, kind of combining the data, essentially giving you an end-to-end view on which sites are blocked due to ignored master pages, ignored alternate CSS, or ignored custom actions. So I could say like, okay, give me all the sites blocked by a user custom action, then I get them. But the site can be blocked by user custom action and by alternate CSS and by master page, so you can have a combination of things. Then the individual reports give you, okay, these are the only sites blocked by a master page. It contains the web template column, so you see this, the template being used, because it might be like on a publishing portal. Yeah, you probably will have you might have a custom master page. But on this STS #0 site, like the master page is called "Why did I do this?" Okay, you can ask yourself the question, "Why did I do this?" Then safe alternate CSS.
To be fair, there are valid scenarios for using.
Definitely, there are valid scenarios.
So
yes,
that's almost like an internal joke.
yes, sure. That was also meant to be a joke.
Yes, indeed.
But does it mean that you did things in the past in a particular way? That approach is still the best for the future. So
exactly.
You always have to reconsider and rethink because the platform is changing.
Yes, absolutely.
Alternate CSS, same story, and then custom actions, same story. One little thing on the custom actions though. What we see a lot is, if I filter on the script link, is this. So people having a script link use a custom action, embedding a particular piece of script. So if you see this, like for a lot of site collections, spend some time trying to understand what the script is doing. And look for alternative options to do the same thing, because that can unblock a lot of site collections for you.
And on this option, which you're showing here, this is actually awesome option in general for any ISV customer or partner or system integrator to understand what's out there within a tenant from a customization perspective. Because if you're designing a new structure, if you're designing a new model or a solution, you probably want to know what kind of branding solutions, what kind of solutions are out there, how people are using custom master bases or alternate CSS. Because it might be that there's, from a 100,000 sites, there's 2 sites where these are used, which the IT is unaware, but the business has done something. And this way you will get a full visibility across the tenant around those configurations. So great tool from that perspective as well.
Yes. And just to kind of pile on that, experience with beta customers has learned that master pages, alternate CSS, well, there is some usage, of course, but it is fairly limited, I would say. Like custom actions, yeah, they tend to be there a lot. And typically it's sort of those enterprise-wide type of user custom actions that we actually taught people to do as well, Vesa, like some time ago.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
So,
and it is a valid approach for classic experience, but not for the modern experience. And we will, or depending on when you're watching the video, there will be a modern way of doing that in the future. So,
yep. All right, I think that brings us to the end of this webcast. So some resources: the scanner, aka.ms/sppnp-modern UI scanner. You definitely, if you use the scanner and want to kind of in-depth understand why it is doing certain scans, please check out our MSDN guidance, because that explains like which customizations do work on Modern and how to kind of apply them, and also explains what is not working. So the scanner is kind of giving you the tool to do what the MSDN article describes around kind of, I think the MSDN article is saying, Vesa, like assess your tenant and find out what is not working. Well, we never had a tool. Now we have a tool for you that can do that step for you.
Yep.
And related, we had a PnP webcast around managing modern experiences, which is explaining you how you can kind of govern the modern experience, how you can turn it on, turn it off at site level, at tenant level, at list level. So we talked about that today, but if you want to learn more around how to manage it, please check out that particular webcast. And with that, we are at the end of this webcast.
We are indeed. Yeah, I think that if you're kind of a UI level guy and all of that, this might not be super interesting. But then if you are actually responsible of controlling the tenant level configuration, tenant level behavior, or if you're an architect and you need to understand what kind of setup your customer is having, or you're having in an in-house, great tool for getting visibility on things, and then you can design the transition to modern experiences more gradually and more detail. So it's always great to have this kind of visibility across the tenant.
That's a nice summary.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening and watching, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.